we go. We actually just had to enable the recording. All right, so some quick background information. The mission is a part of an EU-funded project called European Technologies for Sustainability, and the project is managed by the SmartCityTech partnership. This partnership consists of 10 business organizations and clusters from 8 different European countries. Some of the clusters have been in the partnership since the beginning in 2013, and some joined us in 2020. Our common ground is that we all want to promote European smart city tech to the rest of the world and find existing opportunities for our members. In total, we represent approximately 4,000 companies, from startups to global enterprises. And as a little side note, the project European Technologies for Sustainability will in the future organize matchmaking missions to Taiwan, Singapore, and Canada as well. But today, the focus is on New York. And even though I said earlier that a pandemic cannot stop international business, it can certainly give it a good try. When we sent out the invitation for this webinar, we were quite sure that a mission in late March would be feasible. But along came the Omicron, and everything got turned upside down once again. That means that before we even get properly started on today's webinar, we want to announce that the mission has been postponed from the last week of March to the first week of May. Even though there are no significant travel restrictions, the majority of our US stakeholders would not be able to meet with us in person, and it would not make sense to travel all the way across the Atlantic for a series of online meetings. So despite this postponement, I hope you're still interested in learning more about the mission. And with these words, I will give the floor to my colleague Nicoline. And let me just get all right.
So I will tell you a little bit about the opportunities and why we've chosen the state of New York and the green building focus. So in 2022, Governor Kathy Hochul announced in her State of the State address that a future goal for the state of New York would be to make it a national leader in climate action and green jobs. And in order to do this, or in order to achieve this, the governor announced that the state would focus primarily on 2 objectives, which would be investing the $500 million in offshore wind, and secondly, achieving 2 million climate-friendly electrified or electrification-ready homes by 2030. And the latter has obviously tremendously increased attention on the concept of a smart city in this East Coast state. And the New York metropolitan area is one of the most populous in the world, and 2/3 of the state's population actually lives within these areas. And it's therefore not really hard to believe that buildings definitely do account for more than 1/3 of New York's climate pollution. So the state has therefore chosen to focus on buildings in order to lower its emission. And in her speech, the governor proposed a legislation to ensure that all new construction across the Empire State would be zero emission within the next 5 years. If approved, the measure would mark the first statewide ban on gas hookups for the new buildings in the nation. This will result in a reliance on alternative energy sources that will allow buildings to become much more energy efficient. And a side note is that New York is one of the national leaders in terms of providing incentives for energy efficiency for a variety of programs, and this includes the direct incentives for energy reduction and market transformation. So it's become fairly evident that especially transitioning to smart cities is something that will be high on the green agenda in New York City, or in New York as a state. And it has sparked green proposals and strategies throughout the state, here among in New York City. Oh, next slide. In April 2019, the New York City Council passed this Climate Mobilization Act. And this plan represents New York City's commitment to the carbon drawdown targets that was set out in the Paris Agreement. And central to it is Law 97, which is a first of a kind legislation, which placing emissions limits on New York City's largest buildings, both commercial and residential. And in most major cities in the US, transportation actually produces the bulk of the emissions. However, in New York City, 68% of emissions comes from buildings, and almost half of those emissions actually come from only 2% of the buildings in New York City. So the city is therefore in desperate need of aggressive retrofits to make existing buildings more efficient. And the New York City Mayor's Office is currently working on a range of programs to improve the energy efficiency of buildings throughout New York City, which includes establishing public buildings as a model of sustainability, strengthening requirements for new construction and renovation, and ensuring that benefits are equally shared throughout New York City. However, there are other initiatives, for example, one coming from New York City's Mayor's Office of Technology and Innovation, where they're carrying out ongoing efforts to turn New York into a smart city. And these measures aim to conserve resources such as energy and water while reducing the environmental impact of New York City. So these smart city systems are addressing, or at least seeks to address, issues such as street lighting efficiency, water quality and conservation, waste management, and air control. And these includes introducing initiatives such as smart lighting, smart water metering, and smart waste management. And actually in 2013, they also decided to introduce a long-term strategic plan called One NYC 2050. And this strategy secures the city's future against challenges of today and tomorrow. And it consists of 9 goals and 30 initiatives, which you can read more about through the link. But the 3 ones I have chosen to include here is the livable climate, which focuses on achieving carbon neutrality and 100% clean electricity, strengthen communities, buildings, infrastructure, and waterfront to be more resilient. The second one is efficient mobility, which heavily focuses on modernizing New York City's mass transit networks, so it's train networks and metro systems and stuff like that. Ensuring that, especially and also ensuring that New York City's streets are safe and accessible. And the last one is modern infrastructure, which focuses on making forward-thinking investments in core physical infrastructure, as well as improving digital infrastructure that will meet the needs of the 21st century. So as you can see, New York City's green transition includes a wide set of goals, ambitions, and initiatives. And their green agenda has resulted in a rise in demand and interest in energy efficient, sustainable, and retrofitting solutions. However, there is still a gap in technology and know-how in the US, which creates a new market opportunities that especially European companies will be able to tap into and provide solutions for. However, it's not only in New York City where you can say green is the new black. Also another city which is approximately 360 kilometers from New York City is Ithaca, which is home to 32,000 residents, as well as the Ivy League university, Cornell University. And despite its size, the city has some very big green ambitions. In 2019, the city of Ithaca actually adopted its Green New Deal, which is a plan that aims to cut Ithaca's carbon dioxide emissions by approximately 40%. And this Green New Deal includes ambition of achieving carbon neutrality community-wide by 2030 already. And to achieve this ambitious goal, the city of Ithaca have chosen to decarbonize and electrify thousands of privately owned commercial and residential buildings across the city by the end of this decade. And the focus on retrofitting buildings, which includes installing electric heating systems and solar panels and battery storage, as well as reducing energy use and greening the electricity grid. This promises to tackle an often overlooked but significant contributor to climate change, which are the buildings. And Ithaca is currently set out to be the first city in the US to electrify and decarbonize their entire building stock. And the initiative represents the first large-scale citywide electrification initiative and is a major step forward in Ithaca's plan to become carbon neutral by 2030. They have also therefore chosen to hire a director of sustainability, who is named Luis Aguirre Torres. I'm so sorry if I butchered that name. And he has made several suggestions on how to transition Ithaca to a sustainable community, for example, through energy efficiency, where the objective is to maximize energy efficiency through the implementation of programs targeting energy use, reduction in buildings, industrial processes, and transportation. You also have grid decarbonization, where it has been estimated that approximately 30% of the greenhouse gases in the city of Ithaca may be reduced by reducing carbon emissions in electricity generation. There's also electrification, where the city plans to implement a multi-year program to electrify residential, non-residential buildings. They have also chosen to migrate from internal combustion engines to EVs, so electrical vehicles, together with promoting zero-emission integrated transportation services such as electric car share, as well as a clean transit alternative, which will definitely be key elements of their electrification strategy. And lastly, you have the carbon capture. So the city of Ithaca's economy doesn't really include heavy industries. It's normally associated, which are normally associated with high levels of greenhouse gas emissions. However, they are very conscious that not all aspects of the economy can rely on electric alternatives. So for this, the second half of this decade, the city of Ithaca expects to adopt carbon capture alternatives to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030. So just as New York City, Ithaca's green agenda is very diverse and ambitious, but much of the technology and know-how to achieve these goals are not yet present in Ithaca at the moment. So this also creates a new market opportunities that several European companies would be able to provide solutions for. And this concludes the markets, and I will give the word back to my colleague.
All right, thank you so much, Nicoline. So now that Nicoline has given us a brief introduction to the sector focus and location, I will dive more into the tentative program for the week. And as you can see, a lot of things can happen, and we will start by arriving on Sunday. And then on Monday, we will plan to participate in the kickoff webinar of the Circular Week. And we will also organize a matchmaking event. And for that matchmaking event, we would like to get some inspiration from you guys as who you would like to meet. So far, we're planning on meeting the mayor's office on IoT, the Con Edison, which is the utility company of New York, and NYSERDA, who is the New York Energy Agency. During Tuesday, we plan to participate in different events in the Circular City Week and also visit Urban Future Lab, which is a clean tech incubator. Yes. And on Wednesday, we plan on meeting the Hudson Yards, which is a brand new neighborhood, and they are in need of ridding their energy production of natural gas. Also on Wednesday, in the afternoon, we will go by bus to Ithaca. And when we arrive on Thursday, we will have a tour of both the city and the Cornell University and talk with the sustainability managers of both the city and the university. On Friday, you can either choose to go directly home or you can travel with us back to New York and also participate in the Circular City Week's closing ceremony. And with this tentative program in place, it is time for some next steps. First, I will explain how our business group New York works. All of you who have participated today will automatically be part of this business group. And don't worry, we will make it easy for you to leave the group if you no longer find it useful. Being part of the business group means that you will automatically get an invitation to all our future webinars. And if you cannot attend, you will still get the recording automatically. Also, you will be able to partake in the planning of the mission. We will invite all of you to a dialogue-based webinar where you will be able to suggest changes and new stakeholders as well, and also get to know the other participants, both from your own country and from across Europe. And as I said before, if you along the way find that this is not really relevant for you anyway, or the mission might not be doable for you, we will not hold you in the group. And for the future webinars, during the next couple of months, we have arranged 2 to 3 webinars with our stakeholders in New York as well in Ithaca. And we will also be planning a webinar on internationalization readiness, because this might be useful for some of the companies that haven't done any export yet. Also, we will do a webinar on how to do business in the US, where you will learn more about the cultural differences and how to engage with American stakeholders. We were hoping to have the date ready already for the next webinar, but unfortunately that has not been doable. But we do plan the next webinars as follows. We will have one webinar with the City of Ithaca and also their collaboration partner called Block Power, in which they will present the challenges and the ideas for their transformation. Then we will arrange one with the Hudson Yards, where they will present their building management system and their mini-grids, as well as their challenges to rid the heat, cooling and power generation of fossil fuels. On this webinar, we will also get a presentation from the New York City Mayor's Office of their IoT strategy. And as mentioned earlier, we would very much like to hear from you guys if you have any stakeholder in mind that you would like us to engage with. And last, before opening the microphones for everyone, I will answer a question that many probably have been waiting for. What does all this cost? And I'm happy to say that the mission itself will be free of charge. You will still need to pay for your own flight and accommodation, but you can check with your national SmartCityTech representative if there are any separate business support systems in place in your home country that might cover some or all of these expenses. Also, the deadline for participating is April 4th. And even though the mission is not for free, past experience has forced us to impose a no-show fee. This means that after April 4th, it will cost you approximately 200 euros if you cancel your participation. And looking on the time, I can see that Nicoline and I have been speed talking our way through this webinar, so we are actually done already and are ready for questions. And also, there is no need to use a whole hour if you could do it in half an hour. So we will now enable your microphones, and you can feel free to ask any questions. Just give me a second. And now you should all be able to both turn on your camera and turn on your microphone if you have any questions. Yes. It's definitely also okay if you do not have any questions. But we will give you a few minutes. Mm-hmm.
Again, you are, of course, also welcome to reach out to your partner, if any, or your EasyFirst partner, SmartCityTech partner, if any questions should arise later on.
Definitely. All right. But if there are no questions, I think in a few minutes we will leave you and say thank you for participating. And you will all get a recording of this webinar along with the presentation.
Well, hello there. Mitko Tsonev on the phone. I have a question actually concerning the challenges specifically. Do we know why exactly the partners in the States cannot lower their emissions? I mean, is there any technical information about that, or is it something that we're going to discover later on?
I don't think there are any technical issue. I think they have just not started yet. And also sometimes foreign countries might have technology that they didn't even know existed. So they don't know how to use it, or that it is something you can actually use. There might also be some legislation that will hinder some changes, but hopefully we will get some answers to that in the future webinars.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
And I can see that question in the chat saying that you joined with a different email than the one you've registered with, and if that is an issue. It is not. We can definitely change it, and you'll get the recording to this this email address. No worries. You're welcome. All right. So if there are no further questions, I think
I have one other question.
Super.
How are we going to actually get to know the other participants from our respective countries and from the other European countries?
You will get an information soon about when we will have this open webinar, because there might be people in this webinar that only wants to hear like a brief introduction and might find out that this is not relevant for them. So we will not put these people on the spot by engaging in a dialogue already. So very soon you'll get an invitation to a new webinar where we will present ourselves, our companies, where we're from, and what we're looking for in the US. And if we have any questions to any of the other participants.
Yeah, precisely, because I think there's going to be opportunities for synergies between the companies present here and so on. So that would be really useful.
Yeah, this mission is not only about engaging with American stakeholders. It will definitely also be useful for doing some inter-European collaboration.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone? No.
Yeah, Tilde. Hi. It's Tim here. Hello? Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm sorry I joined a little bit later due to some troubles with the registration. Have we postponed the mission yet? I heard the 4th of April, and it used to be the 20 and something of March. So have we put it off or not?
Yes. Yes, we have.
That's great. For which date?
For the first week of May, which is the 2nd to the 6th.
I got it. Like we spoke the last time there on the meeting.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
All right. Super. There's a question in the chat. I'm just going to read it out loud. You've mentioned waste handling. Will that be machinery investment, or how to handle the waste away from factories?
It's very much waste management, not so much necessarily machinery, but it can also be. Again, they haven't necessarily opened up for, what do you call it, like projects yet. So it will be definitely something we will have to investigate further when and if we go there, if you come. But yeah.
One thing is that in the US, they have a lot of landfills and they will not be incinerating their waste. So that might be a suggestion that we can come up with, how to waste incineration and how to use the excess heat from that.
Yeah.
But I have heard something about they having some sort of legislation that I'm not 100% aware of that makes it it's not allowed to burn your waste. But that is something we're going to look into.
Can I just tell Frank, because I'm part from the project team. My name is Dimitar, and I happened to work on one of such projects here in Bulgaria. So I'm pretty much aware of the technologies here in Europe and the United States. So basically, these are called waste to energy solutions. And the United States, they have a lot of waste incineration plants, but they're technologically not so updated like the European one. And in fact, Denmark, which is, I guess, your country, Frank, is a world leader in that area. So you provide plenty of solutions. You have plenty of experts in that area. So I know that American, they like trying to introduce new technologies. For example, the waste fields there in the United States, they used to burn and to incinerate the whole waste that is collected there. And in Europe, we used to separate the waste. We build kind of plants. It's called waste plants, and we separate the waste using different technologies. And basically, something like 43% of the ordinary waste, city waste, is called RDF. This is residual derived fuel. So this is a low-calorie fuel that is usually incinerated in specially built power plants, whereas the other waste is something like 40% is torf. They produce torf of it, and it could be sold very easily around. It's something that is a commodity that is of high demand. And actually, this is what they built in Sofia here in Bulgaria, in our power plant. So I know that I participated in this project. That's why I know how it works. So I guess they want to introduce something like that in Ithaca, and that would be a cutting-edge technology. We used to hire Danish experts here in Bulgaria to help us. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. But why I'm asking that's because with Danish company, we are selling machinery in US today, where we are compacting the waste, and then you easier could bring in from the shop or from the restaurant to the field or where you are going to use it afterwards. That's why I'm asking you.
All right. All right. Thank you, Dimi, and also thank you, Frank, for the question. But we can definitely see if we can work this angle of waste management into the project.
Okay, thank you.
And we have one more question in the chat. Someone is asking about what about a Brooklyn Bridge infrastructure maintenance? I guess that sounds like a really interesting project. Definitely, if we will definitely look into that and see if we can engage with someone and present that as well as a case.
The City of New York has been promoting the use of bicycles for a few years. Do you know what kind of initiatives and or funds are active at the moment? So currently, you can also read that in the one NYC 2050 strategy, where they are definitely heavily relying on redoing a lot of infrastructure, especially not just in terms of trains and metro systems, also in terms of introducing their bicycles or bicycle lanes into their streets. So you can definitely in there read more in depth where their progress is, and especially also where they want to head in terms of that. So definitely recommend you to look into the One NYC 2050 link that will be in the PowerPoint, or also just look it up yourself, and you can definitely read more into it, more in depth.
Yes. Okay. Super. All right. So are we maybe at the end of the question line, or do anyone have anything? No.
So in terms of the question about what about food waste handling, is that on the table? It is not something I have necessarily come across. So it's not necessarily something that is heavily focused on. We can definitely look into it and see if it is something, if that should be of interest, but it's not something that has been emphasized or brought up in the strategies that I have read.
Can I again say a few words about that? I happen to work in this waste management facility here in Sofia, and there is usually when you build such a plant, there is a separate plant for the food waste. And here in Sofia, they produced a methane reactor. It's a kind of reactor, a big tank. They put all the food there. They have, as far as I know, in Sofia, there are 15 small buses that collect the waste from restaurants and food shops, which they bring to that facility. So they put all the food there, and they put some kind of bacteria. I'm not exactly aware what the name of this bacteria is. And this bacteria, it produces methane. And this is, they use this gas later on for the industrial needs. So basically, this is part of the integrated waste collection of the city. That's why I'm quite sure there is going to be such a facility there.
All right. Thank you, Dimi.
Thank you, Dimi. But it's not something that has been heavily emphasized throughout their strategies, but it could definitely also be a part of their waste management in general.
All right. Okay, so if there are no further questions. Oh, there was. Let me see, I'm going to read this out loud. We have built a solution with another Danish partner for food and waste separation in restaurants and cantinas. So as part of our smart IoT solutions, we would like to promote this. Sounds like a really good idea, Christian. We will definitely look more into that. But if there are no more questions, we will say thank you for listening in, and thank you so much for the questions. We were a bit nervous there at the beginning. It was just radio silence, but thank you so much for engaging. And you will all get a recording in your email box as well as an invitation to the next webinar. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions.
Thanks, girls.
All right.
Thank you. Have a nice day.